Hello, everybody. I'm a practicing therapist and a doctoral student of psychology. Today, we're going to go over why challenging and avoidant, their triggers, not who they are as a person, sometimes needs to happen in order for the relationship to progress. And I'm going to talk about why. We're going to talk about the healthy strategies for engagement to do so. And then I'm going to talk about approaches that I think might not be the best option, okay? And so it's very important, I think, first and foremost, to understand that folks who have avoidant attachment style, either one, fearful or dismissive, they actually struggle with connections. And this is obviously due to their attachment history, their childhood, right? Often these folks keep emotional distance, and often they have deactivation strategies and limiting beliefs that actually create issues, fundamental issues in relationships. And so if you do not challenge those and you just placate or you allow these things to stay in the relationship may be somewhat satisfactory, but it may be superficial. It may not be as in depth, and both individuals are not able to feel the full love. And so at the same time, the avoidant individual may not actually experience the emotions that might help a healthy engagement and relationship. And so they may not even realize how important this relationship is because they're not being challenged. They're being in their own bubble. It's not helping them change. So it might stay and might be stable, but they're not going to appreciate it as much as if it helped them grow. And sometimes people don't realize that. People are afraid to challenge other people because they are afraid that they will lose them. But sometimes this is a mistake, because what happens is first of all, you're hurting yourself. Second, you are actually hurting your partner. If you care about somebody, you cannot continuously let them be whatever they want, right? You can't enable them because it's going to create resentment on both sides. And I've made videos on enabling. I don't think enabling in relationships benefit people, not for too long, okay? And so one of the first ways to actually challenge an avoidant in their deactivation or themselves is we want to create some sort of prompting behaviors. Now, prompting doesn't mean arguing. You don't have to argue about these things, but you want to introduce healthy behavior. So for example, you want to express a concern. You're going to prompt it by expressing it, is basically the best way to put it. And when you express this concern, you can still say, I'm not expecting this to be immediate. We don't have to change this right away, but I do want to mention, I think that this is something I don't think is healthy, and I just want you to know this is my side. So for example, let's say this person, let's say it's an avoidant male, and when he's depressed or detached or whatever, maybe he pulls away and he doesn't eat and he just plays video games. This is just an example, okay? That's fine, but he's also not eating for long stretches of time and he's just focused on his video game, and you're kind of worried about him not eating, and you kind of wish that he would take like a break to just eat, or maybe like have a bag of chips or a snack or whatever. But he's so emotionally like detached right now, he's not even thinking about it. Obviously that's not good. You want to eat, right? And so you're worried about that. And maybe he's telling you, oh, it's not a big deal, like it's normal, a lot of guys do this, and he could be right. I can't speak to that. But what he doesn't realize is part of his attachment issue. He doesn't realize that when he's really detached, he's very much in his own bubble and he needs that space. But it can't be to the point where he's not eating or he's not showering or he's not sleeping, right? That's probably it's not healthy. And you have the right to say that. Now, you saying that doesn't mean, hey, I'm expecting you to eat right now, get into the kitchen right now, and I'm going to make you a sandwich. No, I'm not saying that. If you want to, more power to you. But you can say, I don't think it's safe, and I'm genuinely telling you, I really would like if you eat something. And if you want, I can bring it to you. I don't care about that, but I'm not comfortable with you going long stretches without eating. And to me, it shows that you're still struggling with regulating your emotions, because it should not be such a case that you're not eating, right? This is not abnormal for you to say that. In fact, it shows me, if you're saying that, you care about this person, right? If you're too afraid to upset him or her, but this example is a him, by letting him do something unhealthy, you're hurting yourself and you're hurting him. Of course, I'm making it much more extreme. The next one is about discussions. I want you to propose discussions when you feel a discussion needs to be done. Avoidant individuals don't like when discussions are dropped on their lap. It's a lot easier to mention suggesting revisiting an issue later if needed, if it's not going anywhere right now, or suggesting a time to talk about it. A lot of avoidants actually prefer talking about things in person, actually, because they don't like that miscommunication. Not all of them. Oh, well, you know what? Sorry. Fearful avoidants, actually, I've noticed they prefer things over like text or phone, but dismissive avoidants prefer in person. And the reason why is because fearful avoidants, sometimes they like resolving things right away. Not all of them. Right away, very low stakes. So if it's by text message, they don't have to worry about their emotions, crashing out, whatever it is, and they can think about what they're saying. So for fearful avoidance, sometimes they like it more over text. So it depends. Dismissive avoidants like it in person because they don't want to misinterpret what you're saying and then react poorly. And so depending on your partner, you know them best, suggest the time to propose a discussion that you think is important in their manner, whatever they like. If it's a fearful avoidant and it doesn't even have to be fearful avoidant, whatever avoidant they are, if they prefer like call or text, propose, hey, after Friday, can we do this? This is what I'd like. So maybe you can just mention, let's call about this issue. I feel like we've been having a little bit of, we've been a little detached from each other. Let's talk about it. Now, if you want them in person, hey, I know we're hanging out on Monday. Do you think in the beginning or before our date, we could talk a little bit about how we can get on the same page? I feel like we've been a little bit detached from one another. I feel a little distant. I want to talk about strategies. And so by saying it preemptively or prior to the actual event, they feel like, okay, it's not urgent. You're not going to yell at me. Second, you are engaging in communication and compromise together. And third, you're still saying, hey, we're going to do this afterward. And if you guys are having a disagreement and it's getting too heated, propose a time to revisit it, okay? Mention, okay, I think we're both kind of, overwhelmed right now and I don't want us to fight. Let's just go to the park or have dinner together. And maybe next week we can pick it up, or when we feel like it's important. It's not that important. It's not as important as our relationship. So let's put it on the back shelf. Avoidance like that, okay? The next one is, instead of approaching with an ultimatum, approach sensitive topics with patience and understanding, while still mentioning that it's an issue that they struggle with. You don't want to say that it's an issue that nobody's struggling with, or you don't know where it's coming from. Mention you know where it's coming from, but it's still you guys against the problem, okay? So let's say, for example, they struggle with replying to text messages. You could mention that you want a text message once a day. That's not a too big ask, right? Just a good morning text. And maybe they're still struggling with that. Instead of an ultimatum, you could mention, I understand that you're not that much of a texter, and I can appreciate that, okay? I actually would prefer texting multiple times a day, but I wanted to compromise once a day is really something that I think I really do need in order for me to feel safe in this relationship. I'm okay with waiting on that, but I do want you to understand this is something I expect, and I think it's healthy for both of us. What's your perspective? And so often you have to angle it in a way where you're still standing on your ground, but you want to hear their side. That's better to approach these types of topics instead of overwhelming them and saying, if you don't do this, I think this relationship can't work. Not healthy, okay? The next one is for you to challenge your partner, challenge their issues. They also need to challenge your issues. And so you need to be open to when they challenge your issues as well. So this is something that a lot of people don't realize. If you're doing something to your partner, they can do the same to you. That's usually the way I think relationships could go for the most part, okay? If they tell you you're being too much, or you're texting too often, or you're picking fights, admit that and step back and take whatever they're saying to heart and adjust as needed. Now, a lot of people pick on each other a little bit too much. It's very common. Regardless of your attachment style, we often think about what the other person is doing instead of what we're doing. And so I don't want you to take everything they say 100% because maybe they're heated in the moment, but take a moment to mull over what they're saying and realize, okay, I think they're right. And so I'm going to work on it and communicate with that with them, and so that you can show this relationship is about both of us growing together, okay? I'm not just picking on you. You're not picking on me. No one's picking. We're protecting our relationship, okay? The next one is actually stimulate your partner intellectually. A lot of avoidant individuals can sometimes help to realize and build trust by having these thought-provoking questions. So when I mean this, you can also do it in a more curious way about their own issues. You might say, what's your opinion on marriage? This is my opinion. Do you think your opinion comes from X, Y, and Z? Because I think mine comes from A, B, and C, right? So you're not picking on them. You're not making fun of them, but you're adding a curiosity in it while still not telling them to change. But understanding where their perspective comes from can help you to know, okay, these are kind of the issues that maybe we're dealing with. Maybe your partner doesn't believe in marriage because his parents got divorced and it was a very difficult divorce. Maybe they were married before and they had a really painful divorce. So understanding where they come from and understanding you're allowed to disagree. I don't completely agree with that. I think that avoiding relationships, even after you've seen so many painful relationships, is just a cop-out or whatever you want to say, right? I don't think it's the healthiest way to live. I think there are people out there that can offer you a better relationship. I think if we got married, I think it would be way more successful than your previous relationship. And I'm not saying that I want to get married, but I just want to let you know that's my perspective and I want you to think on it, right? And so you're stimulating each other intellectually and growing from each other's experiences, okay? And the last one is you're actually pushing your partner, both of you guys, are pushing each other to be better supportively. This is not even attachment issue-wise, right? You might say, you've been talking about starting that project. What's holding you back? Or they might say, hey, you keep saying you're going to go out and make friends, but you haven't. What's the reason? Why are you procrastinating on that? You want it to be a supportive environment so both of you guys can challenge each other. And what I don't recommend is I don't recommend you bottling up your feelings and holding it back and then crashing out. And I also don't recommend you withdrawing emotionally as response to get them to see that you're pulling away, or matching energy or something like that, to teach them a lesson. I don't recommend those things. And so as long as you are not trying to manipulate the situation, I think overall challenging your partner in a healthy, balanced way can be very helpful. So let's go ahead and go over some of the behaviors and then we'll wrap it up, okay? The first one is prompting behaviors. That really helps. Proposing discussions. That can very much help. Approaching communications like sensitive topics in a compromising fashion rather than ultimatums. That can help. The next one is actually allowing them to challenge you. That can be very helpful. The one after that is actually stimulating each other intellectually. And the last one is pushing each other to be better. I hope this video is helpful to somebody. Please like, subscribe. I will see you in the next one.